Okay. Hi. Welcome. This is Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, here to do some live tarot readings today. Give me a moment to get set up, and then we'll dive right on in. I'm going to see if I can get anything else out of this candle. Well, it lit, so that's good. Let me burn some Palo Santo. There's a good chance this candle's going to go out, but I have another one that I can light if I feel the urge to do that. But I will burn some Palo Santo, and then we'll get started. It is nice smelling. I think it's clove. It doesn't say on the candle what the smell is, but it smells like cloves to me. There may be other herbs or scents mixed in there too, but it has that kind of earthy spiciness that cloves have. I really like it. Okay, and I'll set that Palo Santo aside to burn itself out. Today is the 8th. And we've got some folks who've already requested to be added to the list. So let me start putting that together. Florisol will be first, followed by Bukal, followed by Bella Bella, followed by Sanja, here I'm on the west coast of the United States, and so here it is still the 8th, unless I have totally messed up. I think it's the 8th because Monday is the 9th. So that's 4 on the list to start. That's good. I like that. Here is the list so that you all can see it. We'll start with these and then see how things go. I understand that it's the Super Bowl today, and so I don't know what kind of overlap there might be between tarot enthusiasts and Super Bowl enthusiasts or football enthusiasts, but I kind of suspect that there's not a lot of that overlap. I could be wrong, but I personally am not invested in the Super Bowl. I have nothing against it. It's just not something that particularly interests me, although I have friends and family who are um, very eagerly anticipating the outcome of the game. Okay, and Cat Goddess, I added you to the bottom of the list as well. So I thought, since it is Super Bowl Sunday, that it might be fun, just for fun, to do a little predictive reading about who's going to win the Super Bowl. And this is just for practice and experiment, and because I think it's entertaining and interesting. So we will shuffle these cards, and I'll lay out 3 cards for each team. So 3 cards for the Seahawks and 3 cards for the Patriots. And and these sets of cards will describe how each team is going to perform in the game today. And based on comparing the two teams' performances, I will make a prediction as to which team's going to win. Okay, that feels shuffled enough. Let me just do a final overhand shuffle. The first, devil popped out. I'm putting him back. The first 3 cards will be for the Seahawks, and the second set of 3 cards will be for the Patriots. Okay, let's see what we get. Seahawks first. 3 coins, 6 coins. Ooh, 10 coins. Looking good for the Seahawks. Here I would read coins as valuable results, right? Like points, we might say. And, if we're thinking about any kind of game or sport. So 3, 6, 10, that's great. Let's look at the Patriots. Ooh, this is a clear prediction that the Seahawks will win. Seahawks steadily gain points, and the Patriots are constantly keeping guard and trying to eliminate their own confusions and misunderstandings amongst one another. They're over here barking like dogs while the Seahawks are steadily racking up points. So we'll see what really happens, but this is my prediction. Seahawks as a clear winner. We'll see in the next live stream who wins, and discuss it. Okay, so let me pull these cards up. And today I'm using the late Dr. Yoav Ben-Dov's CBD, that's Conver Ben-Dov Tarot de Marseille reproduction published by US Games. As maybe you saw with the devil card that I had out there just a moment ago, I've gone through with a Sharpie and blocked out any nudity on this deck. I really, really love this deck. I actually have 2 copies of it. And I decided I really wanted to use one of them on my YouTube channel, but because I'm worried about YouTube shutting me down for showing nudity, even for artistic purposes, as tarot is, I went ahead and blocked out any nudity. So I'm using this deck today for the readings, and I'm excited to play around with it. I've used this deck before on this channel, but I had the nudity covered up with washi tape, which worked fine, except for shuffling, because the washi tape added like this little texture, and when I would try to riffle shuffle, the cards would get caught on the tape, and so that's why I've opted for the permanent censorship, really, disfigurement of the cards with the Sharpie pen to block out the nudity. Okay, so now that that preamble is said, Let's see. I'll add Priscilla to the bottom of the list, and then we'll start with Flora Soul's question. And as per usual, I will work my way through the list in order of the requests. And if I call your name and you're not here, I will, I'll need to skip over you and jump on to the next person. Okay, so Flora Soul, if you would like to post your question. Oh, wait, I see your question. Here it is. I want to know, how does Zine feel about Bushra? Does he love me? Okay. I think we've read on this person before. So, how does Zine feel about Bushra? How does Zine feel about Bushra? Okay. 3 cards. 4 batons, King of Batons, and the Hermit. Well, there's no image here indicating, strictly speaking, love, right? Given that the subject of the reading is this other person, Zine, who I'm reading as the King of Batons, and given that the question is, how does Zine feel about Bushra? I mean, what we see are 2 people looking at one another. The King of Batons is interested in a practical social relationship as opposed to a love relationship, right? The Hermit is interested in looking, seeing, understanding, and thinking. Um, I wouldn't strictly say I think the answer to the question is, does he love? Not in a romantic sense. If there's any feeling of affection, it seems to be in a practical kind of sense, right? 4 batons, this is a stable social relationship. Could also be working, but that doesn't seem to have any application to the context, unless you work together with this person or study together with this person, the 2 of you. But what we see here are 2 people who are in a practical kind of working or studying or social relationship, more akin to a friend group, right? Um, if in order to give a clear affirmative answer, does he love me? I would want to see hearts or cups, that is, um, in the reading, and particularly surrounding 2 people looking at one another. But think about it. We see a king sitting on his throne, and he's looking at an old person, old man in this picture. Um, I don't I don't think that there's love there, right? Not of the romantic, physical kind anyways, right? It's hard to imagine anything like that between a king of batons and a hermit in most contexts, right? You know, if we had a different context, I'd give a different answer. Um, and so I am making some assumptions, of course, about oh, you do work together. Oh, I see that. Yeah, so I mean, in that case, if you work together, this is a working kind of social relationship. You know, you're colleagues in that sense. And so, if anything, the King of Batons sees the Hermit as someone who's like wise and knowledgeable in the workplace, like someone that they might go to for answers, someone who they could say, "Hey, can you help shine a light on this work problem, this situation?" Um, but I wouldn't say anything about it being like, love, strictly speaking, in the sense that in a romantic sense, right? So so, I think that he's more likely, right now at least, to see you as someone who can help him, um, understand his work situation. He also seems to think of you as someone whom he can see eye to eye with, right? Because whenever we see the human figures on the cards and we're reading about relations between people, right? Relationships of any kind between people, when we see the two figures looking one another in the eye, there does indicate a kind of symmetry or agreement, like they're getting along, right? If we see them looking away from one another, well, that likely indicates disagreement or ignorance or indifference. And if we see one figure looking at another and the other is looking away, that suggests that one person is more interested than the other person is, right? So there is a clear indication of agreement and symmetry and like wanting or feeling like he currently has a connection, right? But the quality of that connection is not one that I would call one of romantic love. It's a working, practical relationship. He sees you as someone that can shine the light on projects so that he can use his power as a kind of king, right? To build, to get things done. Okay, welcome to anyone who might be joining. I am Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, and I'm doing some free live readings today. I see Vitters has requested a reading, so I'm adding Vitter to the bottom of the list. And so next up, we will have Bukal. I forgot to mention what tea I'm drinking today. I've got hibiscus tea again today. A big mug of it. I love this color. I think the color of hibiscus tea is one of my all-time favorite colors. It's like this deep red, almost like a magenta purple kind of color. You can get it, Starbucks sells, I think, still sells Tazo teas, Tazo, and if you order the passion tea, that is a hibiscus. There's other herbs in there too, but it's caffeine free. There's no caffeine in it. Not that I have anything against caffeine. It's just that I've had enough today. So it's an herbal tea, and it's got a very intense um, floral sort of flavor to it that's almost sweet. There's no sugar, and it's not sweet, but it's certainly not bitter. Um, it's it's really good. Yes, the color is similar to cranberry juice. The in color, not in flavor. Um, it's like a slightly deeper, more intense cranberry kind of color. Yeah. Okay, so next up, Bucol. Bucol 56. Oh, and I see you'd asked earlier, do I do health readings? Oh, but you have a question here. Okay, so is there a reconciliation or reunion of me and Arfat? If yes, then when? Okay, so what I can do is shuffle and pull 3 cards for whether or not there will be a reconciliation. And then what I'll do, one way to do this would then be to go into more detail and pull more cards and do sort of a separate reading about timing. But since I'm just doing one reading per person today, what I'll do is look at the speed indicators on the cards that come up. And if we have an affirmative, then I can use those speed indicators to indicate whether this is something that will happen sort of fast or slow. Okay. And welcome to anyone who might be joining. My name is Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot. I'm doing some free live readings today. Check out the video description or the pinned chat message for information about how to request a reading. I'm also available for paid private readings, either on Zoom live or I also offer recorded audio readings. And you can check out the link in the video description for information about how to request one of those. Okay, so we're checking in to see whether there will be a reconciliation or reunion of some kind for Bucol and Arfat. Let's see what we get. 6 batons. 9 batons. And the Queen of Swords. So this doesn't look to me like there's a reconciliation or reunion between two people. Instead, we see a lot of batons referring to perhaps social relationships, but of the practical, friendly type, as opposed to the deep emotional loving type, right? With the 6 of batons moving to the 9, there's a sense of being on a practical path with someone or towards someone, but that it takes a detour. In other words, there's a feeling of like going backwards in a hope that that will go forwards. And the result of that detour path is a change which requires one to um, make a judgment or make a decision about whether this path is headed in the right direction, right? And so the sense I'm kind of getting here, and obviously, well, maybe it wasn't obvious, but I would see the Queen of Swords here as referring to you, Bukal. And so you're looking back on the effort that you've put into this person. And over time, putting in more energy, putting in more effort towards hoping that this person will come back is eventually going to take you to a place where you may want to reconsider whether um, continuing to put in effort and energy with this person is in your best interest, right? So, the Queen of Swords, you showing up here as the Queen of Swords, the Queen of Swords is a wise, understanding, and patient person who she has seen some shit, right? She has been through it. She understands how dark the world can be. She knows how to fight for herself. And um, those are all excellent qualities, right? But to answer the question you asked about will there be a reconciliation or reunion, the queen is here by herself, right? And she's looking at the effort she's put in, and she's thinking about how she's had to go back to go forward and reaching a point where she's coming to terms with making a change. And that change is about making a decision in or a judgment about how she is directing her efforts, her energies. Um, and so I guess to spell it out maybe a little more obviously, I think rather than a reunion or a reconciliation, um, what I see here is you making a judgment that it's time to make a change, if that makes sense. Another way of thinking about the Queen of Swords showing up here like this is because I always like to go back to what the function of the card is. And the function of a sword, which the Queen holds, is to either fight or to defend, right? And so this could be your coming to the realization that it's time to protect yourself, to defend yourself, and rather than sort of waiting around for someone to come back to you, if that makes sense. Okay, let me look back through the chat because there's a lot of stuff going on here. And that damn OJ, is this a reading question or some other kind of question? Okay, so I've added a whole bunch of people to the bottom of the list. And I'm going to close the list now because this is a lot for me. Usually after 10, I'm pretty wiped out. Keep in mind, I am available for paid private readings too. If you check the description of the video, you'll find a link there for how to order one of those readings. So next up is Bella Bella. And sure, go ahead, that damn OJ. What is your question? I'll see if it's something I can answer. And meanwhile, I'll work on Bella's reading. Bella Bella asks about how Abedin feels towards B. This is a crush. Okay. What are Abedin's feelings towards B? 3 cups, 5 swords, and the Knight of Swords. Hmm. Well, the 3 of cups turning into 5 swords suggests a growing emotional attachment that turns sharp. So I think that what this could be indicating is that this person feels some attraction towards B, who I suspect is Bella Bella, but I don't know for sure, right? That Abaddon feels a growing connection towards Bella Bella, but something cuts it off, right? These swords come come and get in the way of things. And so this could be that he feels he needs to impose some order, like for some reason acting on this growing emotional connection is not allowed, and so he's, like, cut it off, right? And that it may be making him physically uncomfortable, right? With the 5s, I think of the physical world, the body in particular, because we have a head and 2 legs and 2 arms, and so in classical fortune telling, 5s are often associated with, the body. So there is something there, but for some reason, it is being impeded. It is being a fence is being put up around it. It's being cut off. It's being prevented from growing to a point where it would get to be steady, right? To a point where it would um, turn into something solid. Right now, it's unstable, right? It's taking shape, his feelings towards B, but they're unstable, and before there's a chance for them to stabilize, they are chopped off, right? And it's something that happens quickly. Um, it's something that he feels like he quickly needs to take action against, in the sense of, like, he needs to fight against it. And I say that because the Knight of Swords is a warrior, right? Like, kind of a soldier, but I think of him more like a warrior who's, like, charging into battle against, all of these cups. So, how does he feel? Probably pretty frustrated, because there's an awareness of something there that's growing that he needs to stop its growth for some reason. He's prevented from letting it uh, get any bigger or become stable, and it's to the point where it could be kind of making him. Um, that feeling you get when you're, like, anxious about someone or something, and, like, there's this, like, pit of your stomach is sort of just feels bad, that kind of where an emotional experience or an intellectual experience is felt physically in the body in an unpleasant way. That's what this is. So I don't know what the circumstances are or the context is around the 2 of you, um, and if there's anything you could do about that, um, but he feels like he cannot, allow any feelings towards you to grow any bigger than they currently are. And here is the current list for free readings. I'm just finishing Bella Bella's reading, so next will be Sanja. Okay, so if this were me and I had a crush on someone and saw this reading suggesting that they do have growing feelings, but that those feelings are being prevented from growing anymore, I would think about the context and circumstances between the two of us and try to determine what might be standing in the way of anything progressing and see if there's any action that I could take to get rid of some of those swords, or not, and just, say, well, it can't be helped. And so for now, we have to leave things as they are if I can't sort of change the order of things. Okay. So Sanja says, "What are my talents, but I don't know I have them? Thank you, Will. Live long. Hibiscus tea and Larry the cat." Oh, is Larry your cat? Hi, Larry the cat. So from Sanja, we're looking for an unknown talent. Okay, what is Sanja's unknown talent? Eight cups, three swords, seven coins. Let me look at these a minute. The movement from the even cups to the odd swords and the odd coins is interesting. That's the first thing that stands out to me. With the eight cups, I think of celebrations. I think of parties, good times with others, big family gatherings, friend gatherings, group hugs, that kind of thing, right? And so this is the kind of tone set. And so the way I'd read this to answer your question is that when something bad happens to a group of your loved ones, when three swords show up at a party, so to speak, your talent is to show people what their value is to one another. So, like, you have a talent, perhaps, well, certainly unknown, because that's what the question was, right? An unknown talent for taking a situation that seems to be turning bad, right? A situation where some painful trouble or annoyance starts to come out, or something feels like it's missing from the situation, like with your friends or family or all of your many loved ones around, right? And what you are able to do is to turn that into uh, finding out what the problem is, and instead of having it be a painful problem, you're able to intellectualize it. You're able to turn it into a conversation, or um, you're able to turn it into words, would be a way of putting it, right? So you have an ability to verbalize what the what the trouble is with your friend groups and your family groups and all of your loved ones, so that it's something which can be worked through verbally or intellectually, as opposed to something that turns into a little war, right? So that instead of people attacking one another when things start to go wrong, they can talk, right? They can exchange ideas with one another, instead of saying, well, you know what? Since this is going south, I'm just going to blow it up. Let's just go to war with each other. So your talent is sort of preventing all out war by turning troubles into problems to be solved, as opposed to reasons for people to attack one another. And I think it's key to point out too that what you're not doing in these situations, you're not ignoring that there's a problem. And you're also not on your own just fixing the problem. What you're doing is transforming the kind of problem into something that seems like the only answer is for people to be at each other's throats. And instead, you're like able to turn it into a a um, a conversation, a back and forth transaction, as opposed to stabbing each other with swords. So that's a great talent to have, I think. Um, not just solving other people's problems, and not just getting them to ignore their problems, but getting them to look at their problems in such a way that they realize they can work through them in practical ways, instead of saying, well, let's just destroy this relationship, right? Let's no longer be friends. I'm going to disown my grandson or whatever, right? And you're able to like step in and say, let's put words on the table so that we can talk through this, work through this. This is a pebble in our path. This is not a pit that we have to be stuck in forever. Thanks for the compliment, Storytime Kitchen. I appreciate that. It's very encouraging. And you're very welcome, Sanja. Okay, so having finished Sanja's reading, Cat Goddess is next on my list. Okay, so Cat Goddess asks, will the person on my mind forgive me, and or will things improve or get better between us both? Okay, will the person on Cat Goddess's mind forgive them, or will things improve or get better between the two of them? There's the King of Batons again. 8 cups. Ooh, and 9 cups. So the King of Batons, this is the person on your mind, I believe. And seeing 8 and 9 cups suggests pretty positively that the answer to your question is going to be yes in terms of forgiveness. If we're looking for forgiveness, we would love to see cups, because with cups we can think about, you might kind of drink a toast with someone to celebrate rekindling a friendship or a relationship of some kind. Um, you use cups to celebrate. You use cups to share things with one another. Um, Lots of cups at a party, lots of cups at a gathering, that kind of thing. And so, um, this suggests to me, yes, I'm happy to say, right? We have the King of Batons sitting here, and the King of Batons holds this very large um, baton that is ornate and well carved, and it has a very sharp point at the bottom. Maybe you can see. Has a very sharp point at the bottom, right? And that point is directed right at his heel, the heel of his left foot, as though he might be getting ready to like stab himself, probably without meaning to, right? Accidentally. Um, and so I do get a little sense that this person on your mind might be, for the moment, holding back, but they recognize that whatever it is that happened between you, that this person might be kind of holding a grudge to, um, I think they're going to come to realize that that's just hurting themselves. And so they're better off embracing forgiveness, right? And opening up and allowing things to flow again. So not only do we go from this one very sharp and potentially dangerous baton, a kind of thorn in one's side, that turns into a whole bunch of cups, eight of them. And I would read the eight here as two people in the center who are then surrounded by six other cups, right? And so this suggests to me the two of you reconciling in some way, and other people, directly or indirectly, are sort of there to witness it, right? And that reconciliation adds even more to the sweetness of the situation. I think of cups as being, sweet, enjoyable, like wine or sweet beverages that we might drink, refreshing if not sweet. The other thing I'd add is it's implicit in your question, cat goddess, that you want to be forgiven and that you want a reconciliation. And it's not always true, but the Nine of Cups is traditionally the wish card. And in classical fortune telling, when that card comes up, it's supposed to indicate that you're going to get your wish. I don't always read it like that. I think the context of the whole situation matters, and I think the other cards around it matter. But in this case, I do think it suggests that you're likely to get your wish and that there will be a reconciliation uh, between the two of you. So I think the answer to, your first question was, will this person on your mind forgive you? And I think the answer there would be yes. But also, will things improve or get better between you? I believe the answer is yes to those questions as well. I will say um, that it may happen very slowly. That's the other thing to consider here is uh, batons I read as being a very fast suit. So the king of batons holding on to their grudge, which I'm reading as this sharp baton, um, that sense of wanting to hold on to the grudge happens fast, right? Cups come along very slowly as a suit in general, and the movement in cups is as slow as it could possibly be from 8 to 9, right? It's not like we go from 2 to 10 or something like that, where that would be very fast. Instead, we have the slowest possible movement from 8 up to 9. And so I wouldn't expect this to happen overnight, but I would expect it to happen slowly. All right, you're very welcome, Cat Goddess. So next up on my list is Priscilla. Whoops. So Priscilla asks, can you give me any advice about my procrastination issues? I'm always struggling with that. It's hard for me to create a genuine routine. What do the cards say? Thank you. That's a wonderful question. Vitters. Yes, if I have to skip over you, then what I'll do is come back to you at the end of the list. Okay, so we're asking for Priscilla. We're asking for advice about procrastination issues. She says she's always struggling with procrastination. It's hard for her to create a genuine routine. What do the cards say? Yeah, we can definitely do this. I think what will work best is a 5-card cross. And so we'll start by laying 3 cards down horizontally, and those 3 cards will describe your situation or your problem with procrastination. And then we'll put 1 card on top of the center and 1 card below the center card. And those will read in tandem with one another, and they'll indicate on top how to approach the problem, like what the advice is. And the card on the bottom is what you should absolutely not do. Okay, so for Priscilla, what advice can the cards offer about her procrastination issues? All right, we'll start with 3. All right, the Magician, 2 swords, 5 coins. Okay, so there are too many things on your table. The Magician has too many items on their table. There's a green cup and a red cup and coins and a little bag and 2 kinds of knives. There's just too many things there. And so the magician, and obviously I'm reading this as you, right? The magician, you, um, have to be extremely talented at organizing and orchestrating all of these things just because there's so much going on, right? And so before we even get to the 2 cards we're going to add to this, one suggestion here would be if there were fewer things on your table, it would be easier to focus. You wouldn't have to be so incredibly over capable in choreographing or organizing your life if there were just fewer elements to it. So that would be one thing to consider. Uh, when you get stuck is when these two swords come along, because it looks like you do have the energy to do what it is you need to do, right? And it does look like eventually things do get done, but it's a struggle, because in order for the magician to get their hands on these results, they have to have a painful exchange. They have to sort of have a little fight with themselves. Like every action, every task is a duel with yourself, constantly dueling with, clashing swords with yourself in order to finally get your hands on the results that you're aiming for. And it does look like you're getting them, although maybe they could be better and maybe they could come more quickly and all of that. Uh, but so these cards are describing what's going on. There's too much on your plate, too much on your table, which is requiring you to be hyper vigilant, hyper organized, hyper choreographing everything in your life, making every task a little battle, a little duel. And then you do finally get your hands on the results you need. It's just that it certainly isn't easy, right? So that's what the context, the circumstance we'll start with, and then we're gonna pull 2 more cards, one above the 2 of swords and one below the 2 of swords. And the one above, this is the advice to you, and it's the Queen of Cups. And the avoid, the don't do this card, is the 2 of Cups. Interesting. And I know my camera doesn't quite show the cards completely, but hopefully you get the gist of it. Okay. So, the first thing I think of here is with the Queen of Cups, she's often seen as a nurturing person, right? Who is empathetic and there and open to others. And that's one way of reading the Queen of Cups. Uh, Sometimes I see signals in the cards which give me reason to put a little spin on that interpretation. And this is one of those instances. So notice that the Queen of Cups is holding a single cup, and that cup has a lid on it. It's closed. It's deep and it's full and it's round, but it's also got a lid. People can't get in or out of that cup. And contrast that with the 2 of Cups we find at the bottom of this spread, where the cups are deep and full, but they are open. They are wide open, right? And so this is suggesting that maybe the problem or part of the problem with your procrastination has to do with the way that you might be um, nurturing others or taking care of others' needs rather than just focusing on your own. And I'm making a kind of a really big deal here, I think, about the lid on the cup. And so the advice I think is there any way that you could metaphorically put a lid on your cup so that it's not that you're ignoring other people, it's not that you're no longer interested in relationships with other people or nurturing relationships, that can all still be true, but it's kind of like put on your own oxygen mask first, right? That you need to take care of your own emotional needs first because your showing up here as the Queen of Cups does indicate that you may be the kind of person who feels things very deeply and feels other people's emotions and problems deeply. And so other people's baggage might be getting in the way of your getting done the things you need to get done, right? And so nurturing your own emotional needs as opposed to nurturing others, right? And so putting the lid on your cup as opposed to focusing on exchanging emotional interactions with others, right? With the two of cups, I think of two people exchanging, here's what's in my cup and here's what's in yours, and it goes back and forth. But maybe you're an empathetic person whose emotional predisposition is such that these emotional exchanges you might be having with others are preventing you from focusing on the really practical things that you need to get done in life. So that's one thing. The other thing I notice in the images on the cards are, believe it or not, the Queen of Cups has a little sword. Do you see this? In her left hand, there's a little, I don't know what we'd call that, a rapier or a dagger, maybe too long for a dagger, but this is clearly a weapon, right? It's small and it's not totally, it doesn't take center stage over the cup, which clearly dominates the image. But she is holding in her left hand, she is holding a little weapon. And I would contrast that with the shield that we see on the Two of Cups. There's this little shield with the fleur de lis insignias on it. And so, another piece of advice I think you're getting here is you need to sort of attack as opposed to defend, right? And so, when you are thinking about the items on your to do list, so to speak, right? The advice here is you need to attack each item as opposed to waiting for something to happen and you feel like, well, now I have to defend myself because this is happening to me, right? So, in other words, you are taking agency over the task. You're getting your sword out and you're sort of stabbing the task as opposed to not being proactive and realizing too late, oh no, I didn't do that thing that I should have done. And so now I have to get my shield out and I feel like I'm always on the defensive, right? Instead of saying, no, I'm just going to go stab that task. I'm going to check it off my list so that I don't have to pull out a shield later. If you use your little sword now, you won't need the shield later. So, welcome to anyone who might be joining. I'm Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot doing some free live readings today on my live stream. I'm also available for private readings, and you can check the link in my video description if you're interested in that. I encourage you to subscribe to my channel as well to help support me and to more readily be able to see when I am doing live streams. You're very welcome, Priscilla. Priscilla says, I'm getting distracted by others, actually, or maybe that's another alibi to procrastination. I agree about my attitude to attack instead of being organized. Thank you so much. Yeah. So there's a lot here. I would say if there are things that you can just take off your plate and say, "You know what? This little green cup isn't actually helpful to me. And so I'm just throwing that away," right? I'm not even gonna worry about organizing it into my life because I'm just gonna decide things are too cluttered, and so I'm getting rid of the little green cup, right? At least for now. You can always try to bring it back later, perhaps, if you think that, it might be useful to you. Because if you can sort of streamline things, every task won't feel so much like a little battle, right? So that's one. And then looking at the Queen of Cups and the Two of Cups, watch out for um, getting emotionally drained through interactions with others. It's okay and often a good idea to metaphorically put the lid on your cup and say, um, I need to take care of my own needs right now rather than um, someone else's emotional needs, right? And then the third thing would be you're better off proactively using your sword to cross things off your list rather than reactively having to always pull out a shield because something is late or you waited too long or whatever it might be. It's sort of saying like you have the choice. You can either use your sword, or if you don't use your sword, then you're going to have to use the shield, right? That's sort of your choice. And if you're sick of using the shield, the answer is to use the sword with a happy lid on your cup and fewer things on your table. All right. You're welcome, Priscilla. That was fun. All right. So let me see where we're at. Okay. Viturs, Viturhs. If you're here, I can read for you, but you did say that you may need to step away. So if you're not here, I can skip and come back to you later. And if Vitters is not here, which I suspect that Vitters won't be, then Sarah Som is next. And here is the current list, so you can all see it. Vitters, Sarasom, SK, Drishti, SR Kish, Ari Such a Lover Girl, and Storytime Kitchen. So I've done 6 readings, and we have 7 more scheduled. So if Vitters is here, oh, there's Sarasom. Great. Sarasom will do your reading next. Okay, so Sarasom wants to know, will ZA contact me? And so, Salama, I will go ahead and add you to the bottom of the list. It's going to be a wait, but I'll add you. And then, um, I feel like, to be fair, I should stick to my plan of, only reading for people who are currently present. Although I get that that may be if it's after midnight, that would make it really late, unfortunately. So, we'll see how it goes, but, I wanna be fair to everybody. Okay, so Sarah Som asks, "Will ZA contact me?" Okay, so for Sarah Som, will ZA contact Sarah Som? Let's see. 4 batons, 10 swords, 6 swords. So, I'm the answer seems to be no, and, I can explain why based on what I see here. It's the answer is mostly no, although things may change, but as of right now, it's not looking like a yes, and so here's what I see. We're starting with 4 batons on the left, which indicates a stable situation, which sounds like, I don't know the circumstances between you and this person, but, however things are, they're sort of staying that way, and so if you're not in contact with this person, there's a sense of being kind of at a stalemate, right? Like, that if it's a no contact situation, it's remaining a no contact situation. Now that said, what happens is that this stable situation comes to a completion, comes to an end. With tens, I think often of endings or completions, and in a difficult way, right? Like, I don't know what happened between you 2, but, um or I don't know what the deal is, but, there's a lot of sense of trouble, unease, discomfort, around the situation, and it reaches uh, like a peak where it can't get any more intense than it has been. So then what happens? Well, I think there might be a feeling that, like, on this other person's part that, like, well, okay, um, maybe maybe I can do something about this because I've completed the feelings of anxiety or trouble or unease or whatever they are. They're they've gotten as bad as they can get, and now they're ending, they're completing, right? And they're starting to diminish as we go down to the 6 of swords, uh, but it's not like we've got 6 cups or 6 batons or something. We've still got swords, and this card comes up for me a lot, the 6 of swords, when someone is backing out of a situation where, like, there's a chance for something to happen, and they get just to the edge of it happening, and then they're like, "Nope, never mind," and they go the other direction, right? And so it's as though, um, something is starting to grow after all of this, but then stops, right? The person backs out. We can look at the foliage on the cards, the leaves, um, and absence of leaves and flowers as kind of evidence for what I'm trying to explain, right? With the 4 of batons, we've got 2 flowers and some leaves, right? And so things are all symmetrical. And then with the 10, an empty space opens up, right? There's some little buds here up in the corners, and an empty space is there, a void, a nothingness, right? And in that empty space, a flower can start to grow. But that flower, that sense of, like, wanting to contact you, right, is blocked off by the remaining 6 swords. So there is a kind of interest or movement towards wanting to contact you, but this person is backing out or abandoning that idea prior to taking any action. So that's why I would say, right now, I don't think the answer is yes. I think it's a no right now. Um, and we'd have to see further on what happens. Do these swords go away? Is this flower allowed to turn into something else or to grow, or not, right? So, the answer to the question, Sarah Sum's question, is sort of no, but, right? Um, no, right now, I don't think ZA will contact you, but there is something there that they're backing out of, that ZA is backing out of. And so if they, you know, if things go differently, maybe at some point that will change. But right now, I don't think so. So, welcome to anyone who might be joining. I'm Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, doing some free live readings today. We've got SK next on the list. And I am also available now for paid private readings. I do one-on-one Zoom live readings and recorded readings, where I send you a link to an audio file and a picture of your cards. If you're interested in either of those, check out the link in the video description to see how to book one of these readings. And so, SK, if you are here, it is your turn. We've currently got 7 on the list. And so, hi, Vitters. I'm glad you're back. I'm going to add you to the bottom of the list. Okay, so this is the last call for SK. If SK is here, I will do your reading. Okay, if SK is not here, then we'll do Drishti's reading next. And I see there's already a question posted by Drishti. So Drishti says, I am currently in London for 3.2 years. My visa expires in April, and I need to find a sponsored job in a very short time, in 2 months. Actually, before that, I want to know, will I get to stay here in London? Okay. That's a tough situation to be in. So let's shuffle and pull some cards for will Drishti get to stay in London? Okay. Will Drishti find the sponsored job that she needs in time to get to stay in London? Okay, Judgment. 7 batons and a sword. I have an answer. I'm just formulating the words in my head. Um, I mean, unsurprisingly, I think, seeing the sword at the end tends to indicate a no, right? Um, the Ace of Swords, I would read here as indicating a big change coming, and it's a difficult kind of change as opposed to a pleasant, pleasurable kind of change. Um, the kind of change that requires you to fight, and fight and protect yourself, right? And so that kind of big overthrow um, suggests um, suggests not staying where you're at, right? Staying where you're at would be more like, if I saw some fours, like if I saw the ace of batons and a four of batons with some other cards, that might indicate like a new job that allows you to stay, right? But instead, we've got judgment, which indicates, on the one hand, can indicate waking up, right? Rising up, all these people rising up because there's a call that needs to be answered, an announcement of some kind, right? Like, um, hey, get going, move out, that kind of a thing. Followed by seven batons, which here I think are indicating a challenge or trouble with work, with a work situation. Batons I see as work, and sevens are an odd number that indicates a challenge or some trouble that you need to struggle with, that you're trying to overcome, right? And that challenge with work turns into your having to make a big change that's more like a fight than it is like starting a new job that would allow you to stay. So, um, unfortunately, I think the answer is no, which doesn't mean don't try, and doesn't mean that things won't necessarily change. Everything is subject to the law of change. So I would never want someone to get a reading from me and then say, okay, well, then I give up because it's already decided and it's destiny and it's fate. I have no agency. I would not ever want that to be what someone takes away from um, a reading I'm doing. Um, but I would think that the way things are headed now, it would make sense to be prepared for um, for having to make this big change, um, for having to start something new, which is going to be a problem, right? With the Ace of Swords, with swords, we can think of having to fight, having to defend, trouble, a problem, and with it being an ace, we can think of it being something new that's starting, right? So, I think it's kind of the answer you probably were expecting, but maybe didn't necessarily want to hear. But there it is. Yeah. The other thing I would think is, with the judgment card, we see lots of people. Well, we see three people, right? We see a group of people, and these are the public. This is all the people who are looking for jobs, which they're everywhere, right? And I'm sure that London is no different. I was just in London actually, in June. Is that right? July. I was in London in July. Uh, Saw a fantastic production of a play called Mrs. Warren's Profession by George Bernard Shaw, starring Imelda Staunton. It was excellent. Uh, but that's an aside. So here's all the people who are out for those job announcements, right? Here's the angel announcing the jobs, right? Like, we've got one job, who wants it? And then here's all these people who are coming to apply for the job. Here's all the public gathered because they want the job. And that creates a struggle, right? This creates a challenge for your work life, for your career, which results in having to pick up a sword rather than stay where you're at. Yeah, so the call, the angel on the judgment card has this trumpet. And so I would read this as public discourse around jobs, broadly speaking. More specifically, it could be like an announcement for a particular job, but lots of people are applying, right? All the public is rising up and saying, me, right? And so the fierce competition means there's a struggle, a challenge, and that leads to the Ace of Swords, which in the context of your question, I would think means a move. Yes. Because I'm taking the context of your question and I'm thinking, like, we know that you don't want to move, right? That's implicit in the question. And swords, in the way I read the tarot, in the Marseille tarot at least, swords are obligations or duties, things that we like have to do, but we don't want to do usually, right? And so you're picking up the sword metaphorically is like having to pick up this new um, necessary obligation, duty that is not pleasant or pleasurable, um, but that nonetheless uh, you're obligated to do. So I see, Drishti, you put some other questions in the chat, and I am just going to stick to one question per person today. Otherwise, I won't get on to the other folks on the list. But I'm open to reading for you again in the future. I'm also available for paid readings if you or anyone else are interested in that. So here's the list as it stands. And so next up is S.R. Kish. S.R. Kish is next on the list. And Helga, if you want me to add you to the bottom of the list, I could do that. And then when I get there, you could ask your question. Okay, so I'll add Helga to the bottom of the list. So S.R. Kish is next. S.R. Kish. Oh, okay. Question is above. So I can scroll through and look for it. If you want to repost it, I'll be able to find it more quickly. Okay, I found it. I have not heard from P in a few days. Will he contact me or I should reach out to him? Any thoughts I might have about him, please let me know. Okay, so what I can do is I'll pull 3 cards to ask whether or not he's currently planning to contact you. Okay, is P planning to contact SR Kish 4395? Here we go. Emperor, King of Coins, 5 batons. Let's see. So there's 2 people here. Sorry, there's 2 people cards here. I think they're both representing different versions of this person, this P person, and indicating that his ideas towards you or about contacting you are changing. So I suspect that he might be kind of very stubborn, or at least in the past has exhibited some kind of very stubborn behaviors. And he might also be the kind of person who thinks it can be useful to be a little strategic about how he approaches things. And so at one point in the past, if he's showing up here as the emperor, he's saying there's no way I'm going to contact this person, right? Uh, the emperor here is like sitting firmly in his throne. He's got his hand on his belt. He's looking backwards and he's not going to budge. And he's doing this because he wants to be sort of the one who's in charge and he wants to have commanding power and control, right? But he doesn't stay like that. He turns into the king of coins. And so he puts down his scepter that he uses to command others. And now he's got this little coin. And this makes me think this is like his little message, right? He's got this valuable little message and he's turning from the past to the future and saying, maybe actually, maybe I will contact this person. But look at his body language. Even though his head has turned and now he's looking in this direction to the future. His body is still very much facing the past. So this is a very, very slow movement. His head has turned. His ideas, his thoughts are turning towards you, or the idea of contacting you, but his body is not quite turned that direction yet. And the outcome is the 5 batons, which I think here is indicating a bit of a blockage, right? So he's seriously thinking about it. He's very slowly turning towards the idea of contacting you, but I don't think he's quite there yet. In other words, while he's thinking about it, I don't see that he's taking the action of doing it. You could think of it as, I think he's, like, deliberately putting in effort to build a wall up to stop himself, right? These 5 batons are making a kind of like a fence or a wall that would prevent him from sending his message out, right? But he's looking that way, he's turning that way, while also making sure he sort of won't let himself. Something else to note in the transition or transformation, however you want to put it, from emperor to king of coins is, I think, the headgear is important. And so the emperor wears a kind of crown, right? He's regal, he's at the top of the hierarchy, he's in charge. The king of coins, this is less of a crown and more of just a hat, right? So there's a softening, there's a lowering of rank or distinctions, a coming down to earth a little bit more, uh, in the way he's approaching this situation. Okay, so I am gonna stick to just one question per person today. I saw you asked if you should contact him, and I'm going to stick to just the one question today, but I'd be happy to read on that for you in the future, or I'm also available for paid readings. If that interests you, you can check the link in the description of the video for more information. So next is Ari. Ari's such a lover girl. This is the current list. Ari, such a lover girl is next. I'm glad you like the way I read. Thank you. I really appreciate that feedback. So, Ari's such a lover girl. You're next. And if Ari's not here, then Storytime Kitchen. If you are still here, I will read for you. Hi, Jody. Yeah, I do. I've got the list closed. It's possible, I don't know if the folks on the list are still here, and so if they're not, then I may be able to open up the list again. But I don't want to overcommit myself. If you can't stay, you can always subscribe to the channel, and you'll be more easily able to see when I've scheduled a live stream in advance. I'm trying to be better about scheduling them at least 24 hours in advance so that people can plan for it and know in advance that it's happening, as opposed to my just doing them spontaneously. Although I, of course, always reserve the right to just hop on if I feel like it. Um, and then I do the readings first come, first served, right? So whoever is in the chat first and requests their reading first, they get on the list first, and then I just go down. I just go down the list. I am also available for paid readings. If you're interested in that, you can schedule it around what works for you. So, Storytime Kitchen, if you're here, I know you said you may not be able to stay, which is totally understandable. But if you're here, I can read for you. All right, Storytime Kitchen. Last call for Storytime Kitchen. And so if Storytime Kitchen isn't here, then Selama Witena. Oh, great. Selama is here. So we'll read for Selama. All right. And Selama wants to know about job opportunities. Okay. So shall we phrase the question as will you have a job opportunity in the next month? Does that sound about right? Okay, sounds good. You're jobless currently, looking for a job, but as we know, opportunities are few and far between. The job market is rough everywhere. Okay, let's see for Selama. Will there be a job opportunity in the near future? Okay, first card down, 3 cups, 5 coins, and 8 cups. So, this doesn't look like a job opportunity, but it's not a bad spread of cards either. The to to predict in advance a clear and unequivocal new job opportunity, I'd want to see batons, um, or like a couple of the aces. Ace of batons would be really good. Ace of coins, perhaps. Um, Maybe the ace of cups, indicating a job that was particularly fulfilling to a person. Um, and we're not necessarily seeing those cards, although what we're seeing is um, comfort and um, really a very good atmosphere. Okay, so I don't know. I don't know anything about you, but the 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 2 cups cards, 3 and 8, are indicating that you have a lot of really good people around you. Like that your home life or your family or your friends or whoever it might be, are, um, very emotionally supportive and, like, helpful, and there's love, and there's comfort, and all of that, which is wonderful to see. The movement from the 3 to the 8, does indicate that that it's growing, as though, I would almost think about something like, um, your family is growing or your friends group is growing or, um, like, members of your family who didn't used to live with you are now living with you, something like that is what is suggested to me. And in between that, we have 5 coins, which on the one hand, of course, can indicate actual money, right? And so this is suggesting that right now, there's still enough money. I know money's tight too, but the way I would read it is just sort of like simple math. There's enough coins, 5 of them, for 3 people, for a small group, a small household, but there's not enough coins for a big group, right? Because 8 is more than 5, but 5 is more than 3. So it's as though, the money situation is going to potentially become a little less stable, even if it's fine at the moment, like nothing is coming along in the form of a job to change it. And so the really good thing to see here, I think, is all of the cups. But if we read from left to right, as I tend to do, unless I have a really good reason not to, and here I don't, I read from left to right because that's how I would read like a sentence, right? Or a book or something, from left to right, because I'm a English speaker, and that's how we read. Um, right now, the money situation is sufficient, but moving forward, it isn't quite enough, right? The other way to read the coins, if we're not thinking of them specifically as money, is we can think of them more generally, more broadly as your resources, whatever resources you have available to you, like from food to money to housing to your energy, right? Like in terms of just like the energy to do things, right? And so this is suggesting that you have enough energy to take care of the small group, but not necessarily enough to take care of a larger one, right? Um, so that's a very long way of saying that in the next month, that was the timer I put on the question. I wouldn't say that I see a new job opportunity, but I would say things are going to be okay, although you may start to, um, there may be some tension regarding money in the household as time passes. And the assumption I'm making as I read this, I'm reading the cups as sort of representing metaphorically people. It is also possible that they don't represent people, but they represent pleasures, right? Or comforts, right? And so it's like if you have 5 coins, you can easily purchase 3 of these things that make you comfortable at home, but you can't purchase 8, if that makes sense. But the short answer to the question is, um, there's not a clear indication of a new job in these 3 cards for the next month. Which again, as I've said earlier today, doesn't mean that it's determined or that it's fate or that there's no hope. All it means is that in the current trajectory of how things are heading, this is what to expect. Uh, it's all subject to change. Everything is subject to change because life is subject to change. Uh, but as of this moment, this is what we can anticipate is likely. And so, welcome to anyone who might be joining. I am Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, doing some free live tarot readings today. Next on the list, we have Vitur's, Viturhs, Vitur's. I am on, I'm going to do Vitur's next, and then Helga. And then if you want me to add you back in Storytime Kitchen, I could do that. Yes, I skipped over you, Storytime Kitchen. So Vitters says, I'm stuck, hanged energy in professional and personal life, have to focus on career but unable to. S- Someone imp messaged me 2 different times in 1 year interval, but I didn't feel right energy to answer. What should I do now? So, um, yeah, I'll add you Storytime Kitchen. I'll put you under Helga. So, for Vitters, I think we're doing a career reading. I'm trying to figure out what someone imp messaged me 2 different times. Is it like, oh, an employer? Like, some employer messaged you 2 different times in a 1 year interval, but you didn't respond to them because it didn't feel right? And is it that you're looking for a job? Oh, someone important. So someone important person to me regarding personal life. Okay. So you're wondering, this someone important to you messaged you 2 different times in a 1 year interval, but you didn't respond to them. And are you wondering if you should message this someone important? And so maybe to clarify, just so that you know where I'm coming from, when I read the cards, I need a very clearly clearly formulated question so that I know what the context is. I mean, you don't have to reveal any details you don't want to, but um, like doing a reading for will I pass an exam would be very different than doing a reading for should I contact this important person. And I would need to know in advance which of those situations we are looking at. And the reason for that is I think the way I practice tarot, and of course everyone's different, but the way that I do it is I think that the question frames and very much determines the kind of answer that you can get. So if you have a very clearly and precisely formulated question, you get a clear, precise answer. Whereas if the question is unclear, then the answer will also be unclear. Okay. So you're unable to focus on your studies because this person is constantly on your mind. So why don't we ask, it sounds like the main issue is whatever's going on with this other person and that's getting in the way of your studies and your professional life. And so it sounds like if you could figure out what to do regarding this important person, maybe the other problems would clear up too. So why don't we do a reading about what uh, is going on right now with you and this other person, and then we can see if we can get you some advice about what to do and what not to do. Okay. So this will be a good question, I think, for a 5 card cross reading. I'll lay 3 cards that describe your current situation with this important person, and then I'll place 1 card on top to indicate what you can do to get the best possible outcome for yourself, and 1 card on the bottom to indicate what you should avoid doing at all costs. Okay, let's see what we get. 2 swords, an argument, 6 cups, and the fool. So, 2 swords indicates a clash, and a painful exchange between 2 people. An argument, classically, this is the card that represents an argument in classical cartomancy. You know, imagine when you've got 2 swords, it's 2 people dueling or fighting with one another, right? So, um, some kind of nasty business exchanged between the 2 of you. But this exchange doesn't put an end to things in the sense that there's still feeling that exists between the 2 of you, and it's persisting over time. There's a continuity to it. So it was there in the past and it continues now into the present moment. Uh, but it seems like you have a feeling like you want to leave it behind. I mean, the fool here is trying to walk away from all of this. They want to go off into the future and do whatever the next thing is for them. But this little animal, this little dog or cat or whatever it might be, is sort of chasing them and clawing them so that it's the fool maybe is having a hard time ignoring all of that. So those 3 cards I would take as representing the current state of things between you and this other person. You're trying to walk away from it. You're trying to, think about with the fool, ignorance is bliss, right? You're trying to ignore, but the emotional connection you had with this person is persisting, and that makes it tough. So, what can you do? We'll throw down 2 more cards, one on top, one on bottom. Top card is advice to get the best possible outcome. Bottom card is what to avoid. So, top card is the Knight of Batons. Bottom card is 4 coins. Okay, so I think the way I would read these cards is that what you need to avoid is letting things just stay the way that they are. That is not gonna work for you. The 4 coins in the shield, this is, allowing there to be no change in the situation and just being defensive about it. That is not going to allow you to move on. The Knight of Batons indicating your advice, what you should do. The Knight of Batons is ready to extend, um, well, we could call it a message, right? Extend something out to somebody else. And so I think what the advice you're getting here is not reaching out to this important person has led you to the current state that you're in that seems to be rather unpleasant and is distracting you. And so continuing to not reach out to this person is going to produce the exact same result. So what you need to do is you need to take an action by reaching out. Do you see the way that this person has their arm extended? They're like literally reaching out with their baton saying like, "Here, take this," right? And so that is the advice that I would give you based on these cards. If you keep doing what you've been doing, nothing's going to change. And it sounds like the difference would be made if you were to reach out, extend your hand out like the Knight of Batons has done here, as opposed to holding on to everything as it is now, maintaining a stability that you're unsatisfied with, and keeping your shield up. I would give that a try. I think if you do that, then whatever happens, you won't be where you are now. And so, if moving on is a goal, and seeing the fool here suggests like let's go on, let's start over, right? Do something else. I think the only way to get there is you kind of have to this unfinished business that you have with this person, you need to address it with them before things are going to be different. All right, so next up we have Helga. If you are here, Helga, I can read for you. And Princess, I'll go ahead and add you to the bottom of the list. And Helga, it is your turn. Thank you, Vitters. I'm glad it resonated. Thanks for the compliment. I appreciate it. Okay, last call for Helga. And if Helga's not here, then Storytime Kitchen, if you're here, I can read for you. Yay, you're here. Okay. All right, so Storytime Kitchen is up. Yes, you can go ahead and post your question. Princess, you will be after Storytime Kitchen. All right, great question from Storytime Kitchen. The question is, how does Spirit want me to view this connection? To what extent do I need to guard my heart or come to the edge and be vulnerable, putting my heart on the line? Okay. I think this would be a good question for a 5 card cross. The first 3 cards will indicate how to view the connection, like what's happening. And then the top card will be, do you need to guard your heart or come to the edge and be vulnerable? And the bottom card will read in tandem with the top card to help us understand what the advice is. Okay, here we go. All right. First card down, 6 batons. 7 cups. And the Queen of Batons. So, all right. So the way to view the connection is one in which in the past you have put in a lot of effort, but it hasn't always smoothly sort of yielded the results you'd hoped for. There's a lot of um, two steps back, one step forward, or one step back, two steps forward, that kind of thing. With the Six of Batons, movement forward is requiring a lot of effort. And so it feels like you sometimes are going backward before you're going forward, that kind of thing, like detours, as opposed to smooth sailing right on ahead, right? It's not that there's an obstacle in the path, or it's not that there was a specific obstacle in the path. It's that the path itself requires lots of circuitous movement, right? Think of it like you're driving up a mountain. You can't just go in a straight line from the bottom to the top. There's all of these twists and these turns, and so it takes longer than it feels like it should. And you're like, wait, didn't we already go this way? Or why are we having to round this bend to go up there? It's not a direct and clear and easy movement forward. It requires a lot of work, so to speak. And so the work or effort that you've put into the connection has made a difference and has paid off. Your effort of six batons has resulted in seven cups. So one more than what you got. But the problem with seven is it's an odd number and it indicates um, that an obstacle or a challenge, and the obstacle or the challenge has to do with the way you're putting in effort is making you feel. It's producing a feeling of unease, as opposed to a feeling of great, wonderful connection and pleasure, right? Or happiness, right? And so it's not that the relationship's going nowhere, but it's not totally clear that where it's going is where you necessarily want to be, because there's a feeling, I think, of a little bit of feeling like isolated or lonely. Look at the way that there's one cup all by itself. There's other cups there, but there's one cup that's kind of alone in the middle, right? And so this is your heart's unease. Um, and the question is this cup gonna be kind of lonely there in the middle forever? Or if you keep putting in the effort, is another cup gonna join it? Or, like, what's gonna happen with this? So it's not, there's not like swords here that would indicate uh, pain, that kind of thing. But the sevens do indicate discontent and unease, right? Seven's it's an odd number, and it's this one extra element, the seventh element from six to seven, is isolated, so to speak, in the middle. The foliage is sort of separating it from the rest of the good feelings that are there. So they're there, but there's still a sense of being separated from them. So that said, what's coming is you being a queen of batons. And so the queen of batons is ready to put in more effort, right? She's got that baton, she's sitting, and she's got this baton that she's ready to, like, keep working on the relationship, keep building the relationship. But it sounds like you're kind of asking, should you? Because in the past, the effort you've put in has made your heart uneasy. Should you keep doing it? Or it, like, is adding another baton to the is adding more effort to the relationship going to get you something other than these odd cups, get you something other than an uneasy heart? And so the other thing I think with the Queen of Batons is with the queens, I always think of wisdom, understanding, and patience. But here, the Queen of Batons is wise enough to know how to do the work in a way that will make it yield results. And so sometimes the Queen of Batons knows that it's time to rest, right? Sometimes the Queen of Batons says, continuing to work on this relationship or project or whatever it might be is not a good idea because right now what I need is to rest, right? So those 3 cards I would take as a description of the situation with you in this connection. Let's add 2 more. The top one is advice for the best outcome for you, and bottom is what you should avoid. And if you just hang on 1 second. Sorry, I have a little interruption. 1 moment. Okay, I think it's over. So, top card, King of Batons. Bottom card, Knight of Swords. Okay, so what you should absolutely not do is fight. So you know the circumstances of the relationship obviously better than I do. Um, if there is bicker, if there is fighting, if there is that kind of stuff happening, this is clearly saying you should not be doing that, right? Like, um, the Knight of Swords charges at very high speed into battle and is ready to fight. Uh, that is not going to serve you. That is not what you should be doing. Especially with the Knight of Swords, I think of going too quickly. So do not act hastily in your interactions with this other person. Okay. That's what you shouldn't do. What should you do instead? And here we get the King of Batons, which is very interesting to see given that we've got the Queen of Batons, because the King and the Queen of Batons, they make a pair, right? The King and the Queen of Batons, they make a couple. And so seeing the king, I don't think this is saying you need to become the king of batons. That is one way to read this, and some people would read it that way. But I would not. I would read this as saying, um, now is not the time to abandon and I'm making the assumption here that this connection of yours is the king of batons, just to make that really clear, right? And so if he, and if I'm wrong about this, say something in the chat, right? But if he is the king of batons and this is your advice, it's saying that there is like um he is something to focus on, right? But you'll need to do it in the right way. And you'll want to make sure that it's not in such a way that you are fighting with each other. You'll want to make sure that it's in such a way that you are building with each other. So let's talk about the batons figures, the 2 court cards from the batons that are showing up. I talked about the queen and the way that she's about wisdom and patience and understanding and knowing when it is time to put in more effort and when it is time to rest, right? The king of batons, he is about exercising uh, power, and he tends to be the kind of person who wants to manage things. He's more the kind of person who wants to direct others uh, to get things done, right? That's kind of what he might expect. He might expect, being a king, that um, he says you jump and people say how high, right? That sort of thing. But he can also end up stabbing himself in the foot with that kind of attitude. You see the way that the baton is extended with this very, very sharp point, and his left heel is right underneath it. And so if he slips, he's going to end up stabbing himself in the foot there. So I think what needs to happen is that there needs to be a very, very practical understanding between the two of you about what it would mean to build this connection further, and that it shouldn't be focused on it shouldn't be carried out through arguments, swords, right? But also, given that we're seeing the batons come up here as opposed to like cups, like if we saw the king and queen of cups, I might see something different. Or if we saw the king and queen of coins, I might say something different. This is about figuring out how the two of you can interact with each other in a very practical, like social way, as opposed to trying to understand one another emotionally or intellectually, if that makes sense. With the batons, it's like, what are the practicalities of having a connection with this person? Like, what's the everyday things that you're going to do to build a growing connection with each other? As opposed to with cups, we would say, well, the two of you need to be more open emotionally to each other. You need to share your feelings. You need to share your emotions. You need to have a deep kind of understanding of one another's um, um, emotional experiences. But here it's not saying that, right? And it's also not saying that you need to be exchanging valuable values or ideas or having intellectual conversations. This is about like the day to day, ordinary um, interactions that you would have with this person. That's what I would see with the batons, right? Think about batons are like going to work. And so, in order for you to get the best possible outcome for yourself in this connection, both of you, not just you, but him too, he and you both need to, number one, be looking in the same direction. If you see the way that both of these are looking to the future, right? Both of you need to be looking to the future and focusing on practical things you can do to build the connection. So, you know, for better or worse, this spread is kind of saying the advice card is like actually he need, needs to take a certain kind of agency. He needs to take a certain kind of responsibility for what this connection is going to be. There's only so much that you can do if he's not gonna sort of lay his baton onto the pile also. You've got yours, and if you're ready to build with it, great. But he's also gotta be ready to do it. And the advice to you seems to be saying, on the one hand, don't abandon this connection. But also, if he is the next one who needs to be putting in the effort, right? You've put in your effort. Has he put in his? And so looking at the chat, Ari, I skipped over you a while back, but I could add you to the bottom of the list if you'd like. And after we finish Storytime Kitchen, the next person will be Princess. And so you asked if there's an indication that he will. We could certainly do another reading in the future for that. I will say he is capable of it. The King of Batons is absolutely capable of putting in the effort. And it is favorable to see, on the one hand, that you're both showing up as the same suit. You're both batons, the king and queen of batons. Like, that does indicate you're like, the king and the queen of batons are of the same family, right? The same suit. So seeing you show up in that way, I think that is favorable. And then the second thing that's favorable is you're both looking in the same direction. So I'm more likely, just looking at these cards, I'm more likely to say that he is inclined to put in that effort. The caveat would be that that isn't actually the question we asked. And so to really be clear on that, we would want to ask that question and pull cards for that question. Because I think that the cards always are responding specifically to the exact question we asked. The complication could be that with the king, the issue the king that can come up with him is that, as I said, he can be kind of a manager. And so the problem could be that he wants to delegate the work to you. He wants to delegate. Instead of doing the work, he might say, well, why don't I tell others to do it? And, if that were to put you in a position where suddenly you're putting in your 6 batons of effort and getting 7 cups, where there's there's a connection, but it's leaving you kind of uneasy. If that pattern did never change, then you would need to decide whether you wanted that or not, right? Sounds like him. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I wish you luck with that connection, and let us know how it goes and what happens next. All right, so next up we have Princess. Hi, Princess. You're welcome, Storytime Kitchen. Okay, I think I see Princess's question earlier in the chat. So Princess asked, is A involved with someone else romantically besides me? Is he being loyal to me? Okay. All right. Yeah, we can read for that. So let me shuffle. Thank you, Storytime Kitchen. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'd be down to do a pre-recorded reading for that. Okay, so I think the initial was A. Is A being faithful? This is the reading for Princess. Okay. Let's see what we get. Pope S. 7 swords. So the question you asked, I'm going to read it again verbatim. Let me scroll up to it. The question you asked specifically was, is A involved with someone else romantically besides me? Is he being loyal to me? I don't know the gender of A. I'm making the assumption that this is a guy, that A is a guy. And please let me know if I'm wrong. A is a guy. Okay, great. A is a guy. All right. So then, in a question about whether a guy is being faithful to you and your princess, so um, I think I'd see you likely as the Popess here. Seeing the 7 of swords and another card representing a woman, the Queen of Coins, uh, does suggest infidelity. The 7 of swords is about mystery, an investigation, something that needs to be looked into, something rather unpleasant that is there. And so, in between these two women, we've got we've got seven swords. We've got something maybe sneaky going on. I you said you might be overthinking it, and maybe you are, and um, but these are very much the cards that I would be looking for in order to say yes. There are two women involved, and in between them, something sneaky is going on. And that very much makes me think, yes, um, that there's something unknown happening behind your back, right? And this other person, this other woman, this Queen of Coins woman, she also may not see it because even though it is within her line of sight, she's holding up this coin like she may be deliberately blocking her vision so that she's not seeing the sneakiness happen. Or she might just be distracted by something else. So I'm not saying that she knows it's going on either, but Seven of Swords in the center here is something tricky is going on behind your back and in such a way that the other woman, while she might be able to notice it if she weren't so fixated on something else, she may be deliberately fixating on something else so that she's not seeing whatever the sneakiness is. But like, um, there's something not right with the Seven of Swords between the two of you. So let me go up to the question again. The question you specifically asked was about, is he involved with someone else romantically? And so the answer to that, I would say, is there is some kind of romantic involvement with someone else, right? Today, I'm only reading one question per person. So you asked, is he getting intimate with her? We didn't ask that, and so I couldn't say without doing another reading. But whether there's a romantic involvement of some kind, these cards seem to suggest that there is something being hidden, having to do specifically with a romantic involvement. So that could go this could be anything from a crush to talking with someone, or beyond that to a more intimate connection. Um, it could be any degree of that, right? But there's two women and something sneaky going on between them, right? So I suspect whatever hunch you had that prompted you to ask this question, there is something there that you're picking up on, right? Because you wouldn't ask this question if you didn't suspect something. And so whatever prompted you to suspect it is worth looking into more, because I I I don't think you're just like being paranoid. Yeah. I don't think she's completely aware. But it could be that she's like unconsciously hiding it from herself, if that makes sense. Because if you see the way that her eyes within her line of sight, she could see the 7 swords. She could see the sneakiness, but she's holding up the coin to block her ability to see it so that she won't let herself see it. And that may be conscious or unconscious. But it is within her line of sight, whereas for you, it's behind your back, right? If you're the Popess, whatever's going on, you might hear it or get some intuition about it, some sense of it, that there's something going on back there, but you can't see it. She could see it, but she doesn't want to. And so she's holding up the coin to block her view of it. Whether she's doing that consciously or unconsciously is not totally clear, but yeah, so, we didn't ask, is he sleeping around? We didn't ask if he has another relationship. We just asked if there's any degree of romantic involvement. Okay. So Trinity Twee, are you here? You're here. Okay, I can read for you then, Trinity, and if you'd like to post your question in the chat. You're welcome, Princess. Okay, Trinity Twee wants to know if they will find their divine partner. And so you say, I'd like to know if I'll find my divine partner I. Is this a specific person I that you already have in mind? Oh, okay. That's a typo. I thought it might have been a typo, but I wanted to make sure. Okay. So you're wondering if you're going to find your divine partner. Okay. And Helga, I skipped over you you were 3 readings ago. So I had to skip over because you weren't here, unfortunately. Okay, so for Trinity Twee. Page of Coins, the Star, Knight of Coins. Let me look at this a minute. This is interesting. They're all interesting, but sometimes they're really interesting. So what I find so interesting about the combination of your question, which implies two people, you and a divine partner, and the cards that have come out is that we have three figures here, right? One, I'm pretty sure, representing you as the star, and then two others, a page and a knight. And so the question that then I pose to myself when I get a combination of cards with a question like that, two people in the question, three people in the cards, it's easy to assign agency to the star as being yourself, right? But then I have to ask myself, are there two people here, both who are showing up as a divine partner, or is what we're looking at um, one person who has changed over time? And they're both coins. It's a page of coins and a knight of coins, which does suggest to me that it's the same person over time, right? And so what's interesting about this is it suggests that this person is like all around you, and yet the connection is elusive, right? Because back here in the past, he's not looking in your direction. And you may kind of have your head cocked in his direction, but it's not like you're meeting eyes or anything. You're kind of busy down here pouring out the contents of these water vessels, right? And then in the future, this person is now on their horse and they're heading to the right. They're heading towards the future, still not looking in your direction. So it's as though they're there, but the two of you, this divine partner is there, but the two of you are not meeting up. The two of you are not making eye contact, right? You're not seeing eye to eye. You're not meeting each other, or you're not noticing one another. So I think this is a really interesting case of a reading that is kind of saying, this is prompting you to like some it's kind of giving a no but answer, which can be very useful, I think, because it's not saying the person isn't there, it's saying the person is absolutely there. They're in the past and they're in the future, but you're not seeing each other, right? He isn't seeing you and you're not really seeing him either, even though he's there. So you can't control his behavior, right? But you can control your own. And so how would these people meet each other? Well, if you can't change what he's doing, you can only change what you're doing. You need to stand up and look and recognize that this person is already there. And he is so focused on his coin, which could be that he's focused on money or work, or he's distracted by his phone or whatever it is, that he's not gonna see you even though you're right here. And so you are going to need to get his attention. Because he's distracted in the past and he's distracted in the future, or if not distracted, focused on something else, right? It may not be a distraction. It could be that there's just something else that he's something shiny and he's got his eye on it. But I think it's that this person is there. They're just elusive. The two of you aren't linking up. So, I am Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, and I've been doing free live tarot readings today. I'm over my 3-hour mark, and I'm out of tea, and it's dinner time, and I'm tired. So I am very grateful to those of you who I was able to read for today. And for those of you that I did not get to read for today, I would love to read for you in the future. I do the free live stream readings on a first come, first serve basis. So if you subscribe to my channel, you'll be able to see more easily when I have a live stream scheduled for the future, and get in there as soon as you can and request, as per the instructions in the video description and the pinned chat message, how to request a reading, and I would be very happy to give you one on a first come first serve basis. I'm also available for paid private readings. I can do those one-on-one on Zoom, or pre-recorded audio readings, and I do those. You can find them by clicking on the link in the description of the video for information about how to book one. Um, but I am going to have to end the live stream here today. Once again, thanks for everyone who participated. Thank you for being all civil and kind to me and one another in the chat. I appreciate that. And if I didn't get to read for you again, I would love to read for you at a future point. So take care of one another, be kind to one another, be well, and I will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.